So, what if you woke up tomorrow and the news was just explosive? I'm talking about America assassinating the supreme leader of Iran. Not some quiet behind the scenes thing, but with missiles while he was asleep. It sounds absolutely insane, right? Unthinkable. But what if, and this is the scary part, what if there was a terrifying logic behind it? We're going to break down the dreadful calculation that could kick off a war that engulfs the entire world. And boom, that's the immediate result. In this scenario, Iran doesn't just mess around with its usual proxies. No, we're talking direct missile and drone strikes. A full-blown declared war has just kicked off, and pretty much the whole world is holding its breath. Which, of course, brings us to the single biggest question: why? Why on earth would the United States take a risk this catastrophic? Why trigger a war when you've no idea how it's going to end? Well, the answer isn't just madness. It's a terrifyingly calculated risk, all based on a ticking clock that almost nobody else could even see. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with how the war begins, then we'll get into that secret nuclear countdown that pretty much forced this decision. After that, we'll look at why this whole calculated risk backfired so badly, check out the global price of this war, and trust me, it's steep, and see how this thing could spiral from a regional fight into a full-on world war. And finally, we'll see why it's a race with absolutely no winners. So the war begins instantly. No hesitation. The supreme leader is assassinated, and Iran just unleashes this massive wave of retaliatory strikes. But here's the thing. The targets they pick, they're not random. They're a very clear strategic message designed to cause the most pain and chaos possible across the whole region. And just look at where Iran is striking. This is key. They're not just lobbing missiles at Israel or U.S. bases in Iraq. No, they're going after the Gulf nations that host American military power. We're talking the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, all of them. The message couldn't be clearer. You work with America? Fine. Your shiny new cities are now the front line. Okay, but to really get the why behind this massive gamble, we have to look past all the explosions and dive into the secret world of nuclear intelligence. Because the decision to strike wasn't based on the weapons Iran already had. It was based on what they could get their hands on in just a matter of weeks. And the key term you gotta know here is nuclear breakout. Now, this doesn't mean they have a finished bomb ready to go. Think of it like this. It's having all the ingredients and the recipe and being able to bake the cake so fast that nobody can stop you in time. It's that final, terrifying sprint to joining the nuclear club. And this is where the physics gets really scary and causes a full-on panic. You see, getting uranium from its natural state up to 20% enriched, that's the slow, hard part. It's like the first 25 miles of a marathon. But that last jump, from 60%, which is where Iran is, to the 90% you need for a weapon, that's the final sprint, and it is deceptively, terrifyingly fast. And that brings us to the timeline that changed everything. We're talking weeks, just weeks, not months, not years. The intelligence was telling them that Iran could get enough weapons-grade material for a bomb in a handful of weeks. And at that speed, forget it. Diplomacy is way too slow. A conventional invasion? Too complicated. In their minds, the window to do anything was closing, and it was closing forever. So the U.S. strike was a huge, calculated gamble. The goal was pretty simple on paper. Solve the nuclear problem by cutting the head off the snake, decapitating the regime, and wrecking its capabilities. But the gamble didn't pay off. In fact, it might have just guaranteed the very nightmare it was supposed to prevent. And this really shows the impossible choice they were facing. It was a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Option A, do nothing. The risk? A permanent nuclear Iran that can shield its terrorist proxies, blackmail the entire region, and basically do whatever it wants. Option B, act. The risk? A devastating regional war, global economic chaos, and an escalation that could spiral completely out of control. They had to pick their poison, and they chose what they thought was the lesser of two evils. The plan, at least on paper, was supposed to be surgical. Take out the supreme leader, hit command centers and nuclear sites all at once, create total chaos inside the country, and boom, set their nuclear program back by years. That was the hope anyway. But it didn't work out that way. Not even close. Sure, they got Khamenei, but the nuclear facilities, they were too hardened, too spread out. They survived. And here's the crucial miscalculation. Instead of collapsing the regime, the strike handed the powerful IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, everything they could have ever wanted on a silver platter. A martyr, a reason for everyone to rally together, and the perfect justification to launch a total war. Okay, so now we get to the part that hits everyone's wallet. A total war in the Persian Gulf comes with an immediate, and I mean devastating, price tag. This isn't some conflict happening in a faraway place you can ignore. It's going down at the single most important choke point for the entire global economy. The market reaction is instantaneous. You've got oil tankers that refuse to go anywhere near the Strait of Hormuz. You've got refineries in the Gulf getting blown up. And just like that, 20% of the world's daily oil supply is just gone, wiped off the market. So prices don't just rise, they explode. We're talking levels that would absolutely shatter modern records. So, what does that global crisis mean for your actual life? Well, it means the price you pay at the pump could hit $10 a gallon in the US. It means crippling energy bills in Europe, and it means potential economic collapse for developing nations. Suddenly, this war isn't some abstract thing on the news. It's right there, every time you fill up your car. And what makes this so much worse is that it's not your typical inflation. This is something called a supply shock. See, central banks can raise interest rates to get people to spend less, but they can't print more oil. They can't magically rebuild a bombed-out refinery. They are basically powerless to stop this kind of inflation, which means the economic pain is going to be deep, and it's going to last for a long, long time. And just when you thought it couldn't possibly get any more dangerous, it does. As the war gets more intense, it stops being just a regional fight. The world's great powers start getting sucked in, because every single one of them has a horse in this race. Now, for Israel, the situation is completely intolerable. Their entire security doctrine, basically since their founding, is to never allow an existential threat to actually form. They took out nuclear reactors in Iraq and Syria before they could become a threat. So now, facing an Iran that's in an all-out sprint for the bomb during a war, there's no way. Israel cannot and will not wait. They're going to act, and they're going to act with overwhelming force. But an Israeli strike doesn't just happen in a vacuum, right? You've got Russia and China, and they are not about to just sit back and watch their key strategic partner in the Middle East get obliterated. For Russia, Iran's a military partner and a weapons buyer. For China, it's a critical source of energy and a crucial piece in their plan to counter U.S. power. So what do? They'll prop Iran up with weapons, with money, with diplomatic cover at the UN, and just like that, this isn't a regional war anymore. It's a direct confrontation between the world's great powers. So this brings us to the end game. Except it's not really an end game at all. It's more like a series of desperate races, all happening at the same time, all against the clock. And in these races, every country is being pushed to do more and more extreme things, and there are just no clear off-ramps to de-escalate. It's like we're watching 3 different clocks ticking down all at once. First, you've got the nuclear race. Can Israeli jets destroy the program before Iranian scientists build a bomb? Then there's the economic race. Can Iran's war machine keep going even as its own economy completely collapses? And finally, the diplomatic race. Can anyone broker a ceasefire before this whole thing escalates beyond any point of return? With every single day that passes, the odds just get worse and worse. And that, right there, is the great, tragic irony of this whole nightmare scenario. The one single action that was taken to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon might be the very thing that guaranteed they would get one. By pushing the regime into a corner, the strike basically removed any reason for them to hold back. It made building the bomb not just an option, but the only logical path to survival. Which leaves us with one final and frankly chilling question. It's the kind of question that probably keeps presidents and generals up at night. How do you solve a problem like a nuclear breakout, when your only options are either to accept a terrible new reality or to risk a war that could literally destroy everything? What choice do you even have?